My next guest, he's one of my favorites. We have him on regularly, and, he's really big around the time, say, March, when the college basketball scene, they're always looking for new coaches. But throughout the year, Adam Nelson of HoopDirt.com, he's got the scoops, he's got the hires about all the basketball coaching moves. I mean, you had an assistant coach, I guess, what was it, from one time from St. Joe's, was it, who just became an athletic director at a smaller college, I believe. I mean, Adam Nelson is on top of it all. And that's why I want to have him on because, I'm amazed at how much college basketball news we have year round. Right now, where is Kerry Blackshear going to play now that he's not going to the NBA draft? I mean, Jordan Bone, he might get selected by the Suns second round. I mean, we've got all this conversation on a sport that isn't going to play its first game of next season until November. That's impressive. But the big news, I think, recently that happened in college basketball was that Juwan Howard was named the coach at Michigan. And so this is a trend. We have Adam Nelson, a lot of these former stars coming back to be the head coach of their college basketball program to various degrees of success. Why do you think that this has become the case, that the old star is now the new head coach?
Yeah, it's been, well, first of all, thank you for having me on again, Marky. Love being
Sure.
on with you. Excited to be here. But, it's an interesting trend. I think it started about 4 years ago with Chris Mullen going to St. John's. Then last year with Penny Hardaway going to Memphis. Now you got Juwan Howard going to Michigan. And a little bit of a curveball there is, former NBA star Jerry Stackhouse from Vanderbilt. Well, that's not his alma mater. Still, you're pulling a big-name NBA guy. Here's why. And I look at Penny Hardaway as a really good example. You've got to put bodies in the seat. And where Memphis was in those 2 years that Tubby Smith was there, they weren't in a good place. Tubby Smith last year there, I think that was the lowest attendance they've ever had. Really struggling. But you bring in a guy like Penny who is an alum. And, he's a Memphis guy. He's coaching at a local high school. He's got a really big name. And he just brings in this, this sense of hey, he's Penny. He's Memphis. And really, he's done a good job there. And you know what a lot of it is, too? It's putting bodies in the seats. But it's also recruiting. And look what Penny's done. He's brought in some good players, but look at how he's done it. Look at him on Twitter. Look at him on Instagram. He's always posting pictures of him and Mike Miller, one of his assistant coaches playing the NBA. They're always on a private jet, or they're recruiting at an AAU event somewhere, and Penny's wearing brand new Nikes.
Sure.
So they're really appealing to those recruitable student athletes. So you're putting fans in the seats with a recognizable name that's familiar with the program, but really the way he's gone about recruiting has been really cool.
And, you mentioned Mullen, who maybe is the guy that started it all. And even though he had a losing record at St. John's his last season there, which was this past season, did take the Red Storm to the NCAA tournament. But I can see exactly where you're going there because St. John's had just really fallen off the map. I mean, as a basketball program, in my opinion. I mean, I remember when Mullen was playing there, and it was premier basketball program, And then slowly but surely, you needed somebody like that to say, hey, remember when? You almost wanted to fit him with the ugliest sweater that you could find, that sort of thing with Chris Mullen. But he would be an example because he didn't have a lot of coaching experience before he took over the St. John's job, as that isn't such a good thing. Does a Juwan Howard, who has been an assistant in the NBA, have enough coaching experience to excel at Michigan?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously he has never been a head coach. He's never coached at the college level. But you know what? He played 19 years in the league. He was an assistant with the Heat for 6 years. I mean, he knows basketball.
Sure.
Without a doubt. He was a great player. He knows what he's doing. But here's what I think with a lot of these jobs is these guys have to hire a big-time staff. Juwan Howard is not, he hasn't announced his staff yet. From what I heard, he's going to keep one of the current assistants. The kid, Sadie Washington. It sounds like he has made an offer to Phil Martelli, the former head coach at St. Joe's, to join his staff, which which is what you would need, a veteran kind of experienced guy. But to me personally, when you look at these former NBA guys coming to college level, I look at Jerry Stackhouse. And again, he hasn't coached a game at Vanderbilt yet, but the way he constructed his staff, in my mind, is like the absolute best blueprint for drawing up a staff for an NBA guy. If you look at Jerry Stackhouse, he brought in David Grace as his associate head coach. He's one of the best recruiters in the business. He was at Cal, UCLA, so Ben, he's got a big-time recruiter. He brought in Adam Mizzeri, who is a NBA skills guy, who was with him in the G League, was with him with the Grizzlies. So there's a guy who can develop players, player development guy. Then he brought in a local high school coach who knows the local scene, right? So he's got a lot of bases covered there. But then on his administrative staff, his support staff, his special assistant to the head coach is Ricardo Patton. Guy spent 15 years as a Division I head coach. He was at Colorado. He was at Northern Illinois. And then Stackhouse's chief of staff is Adele Harris, the former head coach at UNC Wilmington. So he's covered a lot of bases there, from the recruiting aspect to the player development aspect to, a former Division I head coach. Heck, he brought in James Strong as his director of player personnel. James Strong's a really good player at Vanderbilt. He's been an assistant at Belmont for the last, 8 or 9 years. So, for these guys to be successful, that's where I think you've got to go. You've got to hire a big-time staff. And for me, and again, Jerry Stackhouse has not coached the game at Vanderbilt yet, but I think his staff is phenomenal. And I think a lot of these guys need to follow that if they want to have some success.
Okay, we're talking to Adam Nelson, hoopdirt.com. If you're a basketball fan, check this site out, at least periodically. I mean, the information that he has had and such. There have been some of these, big stars that have become coaches. And, yeah, I mean, I hesitate to say that, Patrick Ewing doesn't know basketball. Of course he does and all that. And I mention him because here's somebody who recruited Mac McClung, who's a local product, to Georgetown to be a primary star for his team last year, and so reap the benefits from it and such. What are your opinion of Patrick Ewing as the head coach there at Georgetown? I mean, do you think anyone else could have had as much success with the Hoyas this past year as Ewing did?
No, I think that was a really good hire. I mean, he's a Georgetown guy, and I think that's kind of what you needed to start turning that program around. And I know. He spent a lot of time after his career as an NBA assistant, and was never able to land an NBA job for whatever reason. You say he doesn't know basketball. I know people say that it's not true.
Sure.
He knows what he's doing, and this, to be honest with you, it's almost good that he missed out on a lot of opportunities. This is the perfect job for him.
Yeah.
He was Georgetown basketball. I mean, again, when I was growing up, Patrick Ewing, Alonzo Mourning, all the big guys that John Thompson recruited.
Do you remember the game that they played, the regular season game against Ralph Sampson, Virginia, how big that was?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what, you need to bring that kind of Georgetown back. Moving on from Ewing and Mourning to the Allen Iverson days, you got to get that excitement back. And I think Patrick Ewing's got to do it. But then again, this is what I always say, though, is staff. You've got to hire the right staff. He's got Louis Orr on his staff. Louis Orr is a really good coach. Former head coach at Seton Hall. He's been around a while. Played at Syracuse. He gets it. So I think, again, surrounding yourself with the right people is big. And I really, I'm rooting for Patrick Ewing. I hope he has a lot of success.
Sure. Well, I just want to ask, I mean, in a case, why don't you think Chris Mullen made it?
Well, you know what? So there's some very interesting stories there. You can Google them, you can read them. There's a lot of interesting things out there right now. But I'll tell you one thing. They did have a good year this year. They were 21-13, made it to the first four in the NCAA. But if you look at that, they only finished 8-10 in the Big East. They were projected fourth in the Big East preseason rankings. They finished seventh. 21-13 was actually a little bit of a disappointing season for the team he had. He was there 4 seasons. Never finished above 500 in the Big East. He struggled. And I think one of the things, you hear this from a lot of people, when he got hired there, he was a direct report to the president. He did not report to the AD. He reported right to the president. And then September of 2018, so right before his final season at St. John's, they hired a new athletic director who came from Duke. and Chris Mullin started reporting to him instead of the president. So there was a lot of other things besides, the record and him, Chris Mullin putting fans. There was a lot of other things that played there, which I think eventually led to him stepping down.
I see. Now, I mean, because when it was Mullen versus Ewing, that piqued my interest. And admittedly, it's my generation and all that. But I think even a younger generation, I mean, they read, they can know the history and all this, And, I mean, that piqued my interest like nothing else would, unless possibly the two teams were in the top 5 again or something like that. Ewing versus Mullen on the bench? Come on. I mean, that's better than Thompson and Bayline on a bench, for crying out loud. So I was disappointed that didn't work out. Now, one of the things I'm shocked about here, Adam Nelson of HoopDirt.com, is really the success of Penny. Now, you mentioned that he's, styling and profiling. I mean, he's got the great kicks on, and that's big in college basketball recruiting. However, I mean, Murray Bartow, when he was at ETSU, used to complain if he didn't get the primo rental car, from what I'm understanding, on his recruiting trips. And he's not the only coach I've ever heard that has said that. However, the question I have is that I was very skeptical because I generally don't like it that high school coach becomes head college basketball coach directly. I'll give you Bob Wade, that's a Jerry Faust. I generally don't like that. Even if a John Thompson did it back in the day, he did it in 1972, for crying out loud. Why do you think Penny has been so successful? Is it just his name? I mean, you mentioned the staff, you mentioned the first-class treatment and all that, but is this the exception to the rule, I guess is what I would ask you, high school coach going directly to become head college basketball coach?
Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit of an exception there. When you say high school coach, you're still talking about, Penny Hardaway, who was an NBA superstar, big-time college player.
Little Penny, Chris Rock. I mean, come on.
Oh, Little Penny, yeah. So let's look at it this way. Here's a good point. You talk about high school coaches making a jump. Well, look at Nate Oates, who's at Alabama right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he was a high school coach in Michigan. Because he wasn't a famous NBA player, didn't have a big name. So he made the jump from a high school coach, to a lowly assistant at Buffalo, and then worked his way up became the head coach.
But that I'm okay with that. I mean, that's somebody with the career advancement. I'm saying somebody like Jerry Faust, who and I know that's football, but you could not ask for a better record at Moeller. What did he do at Notre Dame? I mean, it was just too much for him. That sort of thing.
I know, right? You're right. That's good. You're making my point here. I agree with you because this is where Penny's the exception. There's a lot of good high school coaches out there that aren't former NBA superstars that are not going to just step into a head coaching job. Like Penny is, one of maybe a handful of guys that will coach at the high school level and could get a college job because of his name, and because of, Penny being a Memphis guy and getting a Memphis job. Like that, a lot of the high school coaches like Nate Oates have to grind and work their way up.
Sure.
So Penny is the exception. Let me throw another one at you here. How about Lindsey Hunter? Lindsey Hunter had a really good NBA career, right? He spent 17 years in the NBA. Then he was on one of those early staffs in Buffalo with Nate Oates. He was only there for a year, went back to coach high school basketball. He got hired this spring as the head coach of Mississippi Valley State.
Mm-hmm.
So here's another guy who went from, the NBA, kicking around a little bit after that, but now he, again, it's a low major, without a doubt. But hey, he's a Division I head coach without having been a college head coach. And only one season of college basketball behind him.
Bobby Knight started in high school. I mean, but then he joined the Army, and that got him the West Coast assistant coaching position. He became then the Cadets head coach. I mean, that's the way, that I suggest it should be done. I mean, go better yourself is what I'm saying. But I do think that Penny was somewhat the exception to the rule, although he had the NBA background. I'm moving you along here. This is my final question here. I don't know if you're familiar with Keith Mr. Jennings, who is the women's coach at Lees McRae. But as I look at these stars returning to the alma mater, it's always been known that Keith Jennings, he said it on this show, he was the very first guest I ever had, would love to return to ETSU one day. And although I do think that Steve Forbes is probably going to have a lengthy career at ETSU, let's just say the next Arkansas comes along, hires him this time or so. What would a Mr. Jennings, he played for Nelson there at Golden State. He was a grad assistant at ETSU for 1 year. But is that background women's coach at Lee's McRae enough for a Mr. Jennings maybe to make the jump at ETSU to ETSU in the future, in your opinion?
Right. No, you know what? So that's a great question. So, yes, if Keith Jennings was not a former standout at ETSU, right? Hey, I'm a Boston guy. I remember him as a player. I know he was great, so I know he's got a name down there. If he was not a former standout there, he's a Division II head women's coach at Lee's McRae. He has no shot to get that ETSU job.
Sure.
But because of who he is, he should 100% be in the mix. Again, because there's so much that goes into these jobs. Obviously it's the recruiting, the winning, losing, all that, but it's the alumni relations, it's putting the fans in the seats, and that's a guy that would probably be able to do it there. Again, anybody else, hey, Joe Schmo was a Division II women's coach somewhere. His resume wouldn't even make it past. It wouldn't get far at all. But again, Keith Jennings, yes, it does not matter where he's coaching right now. He could be coaching a Division 6 team in Italy. And he, when that job opens up, yeah, he should absolutely be involved in that.
Adam Nelson, I once wrote a column. It was the 18 Undeniable Sports Truths, and one of them was a team needs to take care of their legends. And it does appear now, I mean, if it's Jawan Howard or if it's Penny Hardaway or Patrick Ewing or something, that this is coming about in college basketball coaching. And I'll just say this, who better than a Jawan Howard to go to a recruit and say, yeah, you can do it here in Michigan. I did it. You can too. Could that work with ETSU and Keith Jennings in a future season? Who knows? But let's throw it out there and find out. He's Adam Nelson, hoopdirt.com. Like I said, go to that site. It's got everything. Wait a minute. This guy is coming from high school to be an assistant coach at Wake Forest or whatever. I mean, he's on top of it, folks. Tri-City Sports Now.
Smarter Theater is a world-renowned